Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down, the greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Hey guys, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
Sorry. We'll start that over. You're totally welcome.
I thought you couldn't hear me again. We'll start again. So, hey guys, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Hey, we're Bellwether. We're really happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for having us.
Delighted to have you guys. I think we're going to have a really interesting episode for the listeners.
We hope so.
Before we get started, actually, I just want to give a shout out to Matthew and Nolan over at Super Cool Radio and Every Podcast I Love Is Dead. I know you guys appeared on those before.
Yeah, we did Nolan's a few months back, and then I guess it's been about a month since we did Super Cool Radio, and those guys both have been really amazing to play our music on their shows, and they've been a really, really great support system for us, just kind of getting our music out to different audiences in different countries for that matter.
Yeah, it was a blast talking to both of them.
Yeah.
It's
just always nice to have people supporting you when you're small.
Exactly. There's really not enough people out there really supporting smaller bands, in my opinion anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's hard in the beginning because you want to get your music out there and you want to play and reach as many people as possible because you write songs that you really believe in and you want as many people to hear them as possible. And so it's nice when somebody comes on board and kind of broadcasts it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So we opened the show with your song "This Town Is a Grave." Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Sure. So Nate and I, we met in fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of met back up in high school in a small little farm town in Ohio. We connected over our love for music and skating and just kind of being the odd kids out. And this song is actually kind of about that experience of growing up and playing music and kind of being outcasts.
Jeez, are you sure you didn't grow up in my hometown over here?
Probably a lot of similarities.
Yeah, a lot of similarities all over the world, unfortunately. Small little towns where it's not cool to be different.
Yeah, I know that feeling, all right. So we'll get a bit of a sense of your history, your personal histories when it comes to music now. What would you say is your earliest musical memory?
I really have been, kind of on the school side of things. I've played music basically my entire life. I went to a small school that my mom taught at, and, everybody had to be in choir and, do Advent concerts and stuff for Christmas and, all those things. I'm not a singer at all, but, little kids don't sound that great anyway. And so, and then, went from that to playing in orchestra and playing in band and jazz band and, all of that on the school side of things. So for me, it's kind of always been a part of my life. And my dad kind of grew up in that 70s generation where he was listening to a lot of classic rock and, all the people that, people are pretty sick of hearing by now because, we've been hearing it for 40 years. But, at the time when you're a kid and you're listening to Led Zeppelin and, Deep Purple and all those bands for the first time, it's pretty you're really impressionable. So music's basically been a part of my life for the whole time. So earliest music memory for me is like third or fourth grade. So
yeah, my dad is a guitar player. He's always kind of dabbled in acoustic guitar and always had it lying around the house, and he never pressured me. about doing anything musical, and really anything. He just kind of let me pick it up organically, taught me a few chords here and there. And this was, I'd say I probably picked up a guitar and started really seriously trying to learn maybe in about middle school. And then I always remember listening to the radio, and back when cassette tapes were a thing and you had to record the songs on the radio that you like, which
Yeah.
a lot of people probably don't even know that was a real thing. But I remember on MTV when I was in middle school, Silverchair Freak came on, and I was obsessed. Like that was probably when I was like, yeah, like I saw Daniel Johns in that music. So that was probably when I really started falling in love with music.
Yeah. You both kind of touched on something with your father not forcing you into music, and then with the orchestras in school and concerts for Christmas and everything. The listeners are probably sick of me saying it, but I personally feel like music, when it comes to kids and music, I think it's approached from the wrong way. It's like, I feel like when kids are forced into music, it turns more people off than on,
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah, I know a lot of kids that, they go to piano lessons and then they go to violin lessons, and they do it because they kind of feel like they have to, and they have no passion. And they usually, when they get older, they don't end up almost like a thing that they grew up with and they were forced to do. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And even I've noticed that like the songs that you're made to play, they're not what a kid would be interested in at all. When you're listening to the radio as a child, you're hearing rock songs, pop songs, and when you think of an instrument, you're like, oh, I'm going to be like them. But you're not playing that sort of music at all, so it's not very interesting for a child, really. So I really commend people that started as children and stuck with it.
Yeah. And it's funny, since I did a lot of music in school and all that, I do have a lot of that, I guess with drumming, it's not necessarily like classical training like it is with vocal or piano or whatever, but, I did drumline and the rudiments and, got all that baseline stuff that really helped me out. But the things that really kind of got me passionate about playing drums and still, sticking with it at 37 years old are listening to, we had a really great college radio station in our town, and it was, they were playing Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day. We don't listen to them too much anymore, but 311, just like a lot of bands that were really popular kind of in that 96, 97, 98 time period. And I would literally turn on the radio station, put on a pair of headphones and sit behind my drums and just play to whatever song came on, regardless of whether I knew it or not. And then playing with Isaac too, we would get guitar tabs and he would learn, Smells Like Teen Spirit or Brain Stew or whatever it was. And Adam's Song by Blink-182, like we would learn those songs. And that training was way more formative than anything that I learned in elementary school, junior high, high school, or college,
Yeah, it always seems to be when you're just jamming with friends that the music speaks to you, It means you could go through hundreds of hours of formal training, but when you're actually playing with friends, that's when you get the urge to continue on and do more with it,
Yeah.
So you mentioned what your song This Town Is a Grave is about, but what were your teenage years like? Because I know the typical thing is, there'd be a load of guys in school that play instruments, you form a band. What was the kind of scene like in your high school?
Honestly, for the type of town it was pretty awesome. We had a handful of punk bands. There's this band, the GC5, that was incredible. They're just a really cool punk band that we got to play with. And yeah, just a lot of kids that didn't fit in and made music, to kind of be that outlet for them for not fitting in. But for the type of town it was, I would say the music scene was really fun and it was really cool.
Yeah, we had a lot of really good musicians, and a lot of, and I think we talked about this on Matt's podcast, but like everybody just played together.
Yeah.
And everybody played in each other's bands. You know, we would have a show with 5 or 6 bands, and you know, there would be probably like 5 or 6 shared members between all the bands. And everybody would just show up. You know, we'd have shows in barns or at the VFW, or you know, we used to play at youth group events at our church. But everybody in that town was just really rabid about playing music. And we all just really fell in love with just, there's no ego about it.
Yeah.
There was no, you know, I'm better than you. And we're, you know, there's a bit of competition of like, okay, we're going to get really good at our instruments, and we're going to be a really good, you know, collective group. But like, we just had a lot of really good people that really just loved playing music. And, you know, we had this guy, Chad, who we used to play with. The guy had been playing guitar for a year. He was playing like Master of Puppets solos, and just like, man. I don't know how.
Some people just have it.
Yeah, he was just so unbelievably talented. And we had quite a few people like that. And they were the people that were also playing in jazz band and drumline and all these things. So like, we just kind of had, everybody was just, we had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know, we played music and we skateboarded, and we skateboarded with the people we played music with. And it was just this community that we all just kind of spent time together, came up together, and we had a blast.
Yeah. That actually sounds like heaven, you know?
Yeah. In hindsight, it was, you know, I do feel like we enjoyed it a lot while we were doing it. But, you know, when there's still a part of you as like an angsty teenager when you're a loser at school that still sucks. And like, man, I wish I was popular, but it's so dumb now that I'm older to feel that way. But, you know, when you're a high schooler and you're a loser, it still kind of sucks. But it really was, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. We had a blast.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice actually there's always like, when there's a community like that, there's always like one guy who just disappears, locks himself away in a room for 6 months, and comes back as like Jimi Hendrix or something. It always happens.
Yeah.
Sell your soul to the devil and just become this like god of a musician. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That wasn't me, unfortunately.
So after high school and everything, what did you guys do to make your dream a reality, to become musicians?
Well, so like we've already talked about, Isaac and I have known each other for like 25 years. And so we've kind of like, we spent a lot of time growing up together, and then we spent a bit of time apart, and then, you know, we came back together. I went to college in Virginia. He went to college in Northern Ohio. And I had gotten asked to join a band when I was living in Virginia, and called Isaac up, and we were like, hey, we need a bass player. He's a guitarist, but it was like, hey, do you want to come, you know, try out and play bass for this band? So he came out to Virginia, and everybody hit it off, and we ended up playing in that band for about 8 years. We moved to Atlanta, and we got to do a lot of really cool things in that band. We got to record 2 EPs, 1 full length. We did a couple tours, played with Angels and Airwaves, not Simple Plan, but Starting Line. It just like some other 4 Year Strong, some other like bigger bands. And then my wife is a PhD student and has kind of gone through the undergrad, grad school, PhD. So we kind of moved around a lot. And so we were apart again for another probably 10 years or so. And then with COVID, my wife and I got displaced and ended up back here. And so now we're back together and playing music again. So we've kind of just had this ebb and flow of, you know, being apart and being, you know, far away, and then living in the same place and playing music together. So it's, this last time it was just, I got back and times were hard. We were living in my in-laws' basement, and I was just like, hey buddy, you want to come over and just play some covers? And we just, you know, learned 8 or 10 songs and started playing. And after we kind of got, you know, the cobwebs off, we started writing music again. And it's just, we have like 16 songs now that we've written all told in about, you know, a year and a half. We only have 3 out, but we have 16 written. And so, yeah, that's, we always, Isaac and I have played music for a long time. We kind of always come back to each other because we really get each other on a level that we both play with a lot of people, you know, but there's something that he and I have when we're writing music together that we have not been able to cultivate with anybody else. And so for us, it's always choosing to do the music for the right reasons. That's how we've made anything a reality with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting that, you know, in a time when the whole world closed down, that you guys found each other again and found something good in all the bad. You know what I mean? That you started making music.
Yeah, it was like Nate kind of touched on, it was a really rough couple years. You know, things still aren't great, you know, but they're at least hopefully turning a lot better. But yeah, Nate, we always kept in touch, and Nate was about to open a restaurant and it closed. So like he said, he had to move here. And I was going through some crap at work, some rough stuff at work, and yeah, we got together, started doing covers, and I've always just written songs on my acoustic guitar. I try to constantly play my acoustic, and we just kind of started writing some music. And this band single-handedly, I think, saved both of our lives these past couple of years. Like, I don't know what we would have done if we weren't able to kind of reconnect and play music. And that's what we've always said since we started Bellwether. Like, if nobody hears us, we're doing this for us, and we're doing this as our escape, and we're having fun with it. And until we stop having fun with it, let's just keep doing it. But the fact that people can hear our songs makes it even better. So it's music has been an absolute blessing.
Yeah. What's it like there now at the moment? Is it starting to get back to normal? Are the restrictions on music and everything lifted?
Atlanta definitely. Georgia's definitely back to normal, I would say. Like, people, you know, our first few shows, they do like the vaccine, you know, or negative test. Our last show, they didn't do that. You know, I think they still are doing it at all the big shows, but it's I would say it's pretty much back to normal. Like, it feels like it's going in the right direction, and a ton of good shows are coming through. So bands seem to be all back on tour, and music's flowing again. So it's good to see.
Yeah, kind of just depends where you go. It depends what the venue.
For sure.
In Georgia, they basically are leaving it up to the, you know, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a music venue, they're kind of just letting that entity decide what restrictions they're going to enforce or not enforce. So yeah, it's, some venues are still kind of cracking down a little bit, but it seems like a lot of the smaller venues are just kind of back to just kind of doing what they did beforehand. So don't know if that's a good thing, but that's kind of where it's at.
Well, at least you're getting to play gigs, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
As a band that kind of came out of the pandemic, formed in that time, was it easy to get booked, you know?
It's been it's been odd.
Question for Nate.
So it's been a little odd. And the band we played in before, we had another band member was kind of in charge of like getting all the shows and all that stuff. And so this was kind of my first foray into, you know, like cold contacting people and just kind of trying to sell yourself and saying, hey, you know, this is our first show. Can we play, you know, at your venue? And so we got one breakthrough in September at this venue here, which we had played before, but it had been a long time, called Smith's Old Bar. And it's a really great spot. They have two rooms. They have an upstairs, which holds, I think, like 200, 300 people. And then they have a room downstairs that's like maybe 75 or 100. So it's a smaller room, but good sound. And it's kind of one of those storied venues in Atlanta that everybody loves and everybody knows about. And so that ended up being our first show, which was super cool. And we ended up playing with this band called the Ottoman Turks, and they were kind of this I'm going to call them avant-garde country.
Yeah.
Like avant-garde, like
Country
Texas
rock.
country.
Yeah. They were awesome.
They were
Yeah,
great.
they were a lot of fun.
They were such nice guys, and my God, could they play guitar?
Yeah.
But the guy who booked us was like, I don't know if you guys sound anything like this band, but do you guys want to play? And I think so. We found out 2 weeks before that we were going to play, and Bellwether is technically just a duo, but we hadn't really even thought about playing live, really. And so my wife is a really good musician, and so we were like, Amy had bought a bass during the pandemic and was just kind of learning it quietly, and we were like, hey, so do you want to play with us?
In 2 weeks.
No, it was a week. That one was a week.
At that point,
Yeah, it was a week. We asked my wife to play. So she ended up learning all of our songs, which was like 6 or 7 songs, but learning them in a week, practicing with us, and then playing a show. And it ended up being a blast. But yeah, so and then as for the rest of the shows, again, it's just kind of cold emailing and just kind of hoping that people will, email you back or see your email. So locally, we've played 4 shows. We just played our 4th show on Thursday. And, we've been trying to kind of branch out in kind of the Southeastern region, whether it's, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, but it's been difficult to get people to write us back. So it's been difficult to get a few shows. But having said that, we've really only been like officially a band since July, and we've played 4 shows. So on the one hand, it's been kind of difficult to get there, but we've also played more shows than we thought we would have. You know what I mean? So It's just kind of like the venues have been great, and we've really enjoyed the people that we've worked with, and we hope that it will continue. But yeah, it's been a little difficult to kind of get into certain venues in Atlanta.
Yeah, a thing I've noticed, I feel like since the pandemic, is a lot of venues seem to only kind of want to book well-established bands, which I totally get because they've been losing money for 2 years. So I think that has changed a lot of things. Getting on smaller local shows is pretty non-existent anymore, it seems like. And yeah, these venues want every show to be packed out, which, in a perfect world, everyone does, even the bands do, but it's really hard for us being so new. And like Nate said, it's just been tough, but we've had some really fun shows.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll just keep growing it.
Yeah. And for any of the listeners that haven't got the chance to see you, what can people expect at one of your shows?
This was actually a really good question. And it was kind of, when you've only played 4 shows, we're still very much in that, we're very much still, even though we've played together for a long time, this entity of Bellwether is still so new. And as most people know, when you play in a band, I mean, Dave Grohl said it best. He's like, just get on the road and play fucking shows. Like that's what you do to become a really good band. Like the way you become a really good band is playing, 200 shows a year. However, life happens. We have, extremely busy lives. And when you're looking at the reality, you're like, we would love to do that, but can we really? Not sure. But so as it is evolving, I think what people can expect at our shows is that there's going to be 3 people on stage who are so grateful for the opportunity to be there and so grateful for that gift of music and being able to play for 1 or 100 people or however many people have graciously decided to be there, that we are going to get up on stage and we're not going to play perfect. We wish we would, but we're all human beings. And, we're going to get up there and we're going to give it our absolute all and play authentic music that we write ourselves, record ourselves, produce ourselves, and put out ourselves. And we want people to find it really authentic and really organic, because this is all us, we are literally writing and working on everything from inception to where everybody's hearing it live. So for us, it's just like, we just want people to really get that we love music, and that when we show up to a venue, we always talk about it before we get there. Like, we want to be the most hospitable band, meaning like when we show up, we want to be nice to every single person we come in contact with. We want to remember the sound guy's name. We want to remember all the other bands' names. We want to thank them. A lot of times what we'll do, especially if a band's on the road, if we get paid, even if it's $50, we give it to the band who's on tour, because they could use it more than we can, because we're just traveling from our house. But like, we want people to just feel that we love music and that we love the people that were there, and we're just grateful to be there. So that's what we talk about, and that's what we want to do when we're going to a show. And it's literal conversations that we have all the time, regardless of whether we're playing or not.
Yeah, I just feel so fortunate to be able to do it, and I want people to feel that. I want people to be like, they really are doing this because they love doing this, not because it's a job. I mean, at this point, if this is a job, we're in the wrong profession, because we're paying for it right now. We're not making money doing it, but like, I mean, we both said like we put money into this for the rest of our lives. Like, it's just so fun, and we're so fortunate to even be able to play in front of people, period.
Yeah, that really comes across. I like both the answers there, but I find it really, really brave to say it's not going to be perfect. A lot of bands will bullshit and say, oh, it's going to be the best thing ever, there won't be one mistake. But personally, I feel it's the imperfections that make a concert great. You don't want to go to a gig and it be the exact same as you just threw a record on or listened on Spotify. You need them little imperfections and the banter with the band and stuff like that. It's what makes the entire gig for the audience, I feel, anyway.
No, it's when you go see your favorite band, you want it to be really great. I really, there's this band out of Missouri, I think. St. Louis, called Motion City Soundtrack. I've listened to them for a long time. And I remember I finally got to go see them at this might be confusing. I don't mean it to be. There's an old Masquerade and there's a new Masquerade in Atlanta.
Right.
The old Masquerade was this black and purple old mill that looked haunted. It looked like it was going to fall down on North Avenue in Atlanta. You would go to shows and they have 3 rooms at the venue: Purgatory, Hell, and Heaven. So Purgatory, there's a lot of a lot of like 80 or like goth punk and like goth bands that play in there. Hell was like
like burlesque shows in there and stuff.
Super cool place. And then like Hell was kind of the smaller bands, like 400 cap venue, and upstairs was for a lot of the medium-sized bands. It was like 2,000 people, I think. But when you would go up there, when people would jump or whatever, you could literally feel the floor moving. Right. And so on the one hand, you're like, this is a cool experience. And on the other hand, you're like, I'm going to die maybe. Yeah. Is this going to be the show the floor falls through? I don't know. Anyways, but they tore that down and now they have a new Masquerade, and it's still Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory, but it's a lot nicer and it's, a lot more solid. But so I went and saw Motion City Soundtrack at the old Masquerade, and they sounded so good. Like every single thing was perfect until there was one song that the singer started and he like messed up the guitar. He's like, "Oh, sorry guys, I messed up and I need to start again." And I just remember thinking, "Oh, thank God he's human." Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, they messed up. And he just started the song over. The world didn't end, and it actually made me like them a little bit more, because music needs to be an expression of the human being who is performing it, and there's people that go to the Berklee School of Music or, all these really fantastic places. Like I've seen Dream Theater on 3 different occasions. You go see them play and it's going to be perfect. You understand that, but like, that's not, you just have to have a good understanding of who you are as a band and what you're trying to present, and so we've been playing music for a long time, and, we're going to get better every time we play, but like, it's not, I think, and I'm a chef in my normal life. And even in that world, there's perfectionism. There's all these things that people are striving for. But like, if the goal is perfection, like you're A, never going to achieve it. So you're always going to be disappointed. And B, like, that's not the point. The point of food is to feed people. And the point of food is to like bring people around a table and have them really, you know, enjoy that time and really make it memorable. And music is a time to bring people around songs or a band or a show or whatever, and really give a memorable impact to people and bring people together. And like perfectionism, in my opinion, kind of like is kind of counterintuitive to all of that. And talking about like the hospitality end of what we're trying to do, like perfectionism and like being a-holes because you didn't, you know, play perfect, like goes counterintuitive to being hospitable to people, because then you're just unpleasant to be around, you know?
Yeah.
So like it doesn't have to be perfect, and it shouldn't be perfect, you know, and that shouldn't be the goal.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's about giving people the experience. You know, it's more than just music. It's more than just a night out. You want to give them an experience that will be a memory for them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can use all the gigs you've ever played for the next couple of questions. But what would you say has been the best experience you've ever had at a gig?
So, like Nate said, we've only had 4 shows. But this past Tuesday, we played with a band called Tiger Cub. They were fantastic.
And they're from England. They're from Brighton, I think.
Yeah, they're from Brighton. And it was their first time to America. They're touring with Clutch. And this band, I Hate God, I think, or something.
Yeah, something crazy
like,
metal.
It's like I Hate God, but EYE. I don't know. Right. But they were amazing. I would say that was probably the bright spot of our shows. Just getting to see them. Like, one of my favorite things as a musician actually is sound check. Like, we get to be in a room that's empty and see these bands sound check. It's just such a cool thing to get to do.
Yeah, actually. Geez, that nearly be enough of a reason to be a musician, just to get to see that.
Obviously, you have times where it's not that fun to be in soundtrack.
Yeah, there's those times too.
Yeah, Tiger Cub was fantastic. They were such nice guys too, and you know, my wife plays bass with us live, like I said, and so we're a 3-piece band, and so sometimes, you know, a lot of bands that we like and we go see live are, you know, 4 and 5 people, and so sometimes when you go see a band that has more people and they have more sound and they have more amps and, you know, all these things, and it's louder and seemingly a bigger sound, sometimes you go, man, like if we grabbed one more person to just like play guitar with us, maybe it would sound a little bit better and a little bit more full and all these things. But watching those guys play, like those 3 guys, like the sound that they produced was just
unreal,
huge. And it was kind of like, they kind of took us to school. Like they were super nice, but like they definitely kind of took us to school of like, oh, so this is what's actually possible for 3 people to do on stage. And it really kind of sent us to do our homework and, you know, kind of said, all right, so we're here. How do we get there?
Yeah, like after the show, we were like looking at amps and pedals and stuff. We're like, how do we sound better than we do? Because that was like it was mind blowing.
Yeah, because we really some people took videos of our show and stuff, and they've sent them over and things like especially 4 shows in, like we are really happy with the trajectory that we're on and how things are sounding. But you know, we talked to them, and I think they had said they'd been playing for, I think, 10 years together or something like that. And, you know, I don't know how many shows they played a year, but I mean, 10 years is a long time. And so it's a long time to figure things out and to dial things in. And so, you know, we can't beat ourselves up too much, you know, after 4 shows and say, why can't we sound like a band that's been doing this for 10 years? However, you know, it's something to strive for and something to go, all right, like now we can see what's possible. Now, how do we get there? You know?
Yeah, that's actually really good. And it's always, no matter what you're doing, it's good to surround yourself with people like that force you to improve, you know?
Absolutely.
We'll flip it around. Is there a gig that you would say has been the worst experience?
Luckily, as far as ones we've played, nothing catastrophic has happened.
Right.
I'll forget lyrics here and there and just kind of do like the watermelon thing. Like, I just make up lyrics because I'm like, oh crap, like, what am I saying? I don't know. It's just funny being in front of people, and it's a totally different feeling. It's you're running on adrenaline, but you've got these nerves. So even songs you could play in your sleep, they just almost become new when you're when you're live. So I would just say, for me personally, it's just forgetting lyrics and just kind of having to fudge my way through a few lines. But luckily, nothing catastrophic like that has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say we hadn't really had any necessarily like bad experiences. We had a show that got canceled the night before, which that was unfortunate, but we ended up playing that venue twice after that, and so and we're still working with that venue to this day, and they're really great people. But I think for me, the second show we played at that venue, I decide a lot of times when you're playing with multiple bands and there's not that much room, you'll backline. And so like drummers will use each other's drums. And so usually I'm the first one to volunteer and say, all right, everybody can use my drums. So then I'm comfortable. It sounds selfish, but it makes a world of difference. But I wasn't fast enough on the email trigger on that one. And the other band was like, oh, y'all can use my drums. So I was like, oh, it's fine. I can, do whatever. So we have this song called Gods that we wrote a few weeks back, and the end is like really heavy. And I ended up knocking my cymbal stand over and like knocking over the drums on the mic and slashing my knuckle on my cymbal. So then not only am I trying to like finish this song out while the drum set is kind of like falling apart while I'm using somebody else's drums, but now I'm also bleeding on somebody else's drums.
Oh, man.
And I was sort of rock and roll.
Yeah, it's pretty rock
sort of a nightmare at the same time. So yeah, that was like out of our illustrious 4 shows, that was my my big blunder that we watched the video of, and I'm just like, good grief, what happened? So
how did you explain it to the owner of the drums afterwards? That's what I want.
I was just like, hey man, sorry, I think I probably got some blood on your kid. And I went and grabbed some like gaff tape from the stagehand, and I literally just like wrapped my finger up and played the last like 3 or 4 songs and tried not to bleed anymore.
Now that's the part that's rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, I'm not putting myself in any way, shape, or form on the caliber of, but it's like, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers used to like, wear holes in his finger because he was playing bass so hard, or like Stevie Ray Vaughan would super glue his calluses back on his fingers so he could continue to play guitar in blues clubs. Like, I'm not that badass, but like, I did have an injury and I did keep going. So I guess that's my very small addition to rock and roll.
Oh, so this one is a bit off the cuff now, but what's your creative process like when it comes to writing music? How do you guys find your inspiration?
That's a good question. So most of the songs I write, lyrically, are just very real life things that I either struggle with or that I've gone through. I very rarely write songs about, because I know a lot of bands write kind of stories that aren't really about them. They're just kind of stories and hypothetical things. My brain doesn't work that way very well. So most of the things I write, I'm either currently going through or I've gone through in the past. And we've touched a bit on life being so busy now. My writing process now is so much different than it used to be. I have about 20 minutes at night when I'm giving my daughter a bath. Like, I have a 4, almost 5-year-old, and I sit on the bathtub while she's like, playing with her toys, and I have an acoustic guitar, and I just mess around. And if something I think sticks, I bring it to Nate and I play through it. He'll be like, and he'll be like, yep, nope. And he adds his Nate touch, which only Nate can do. He gives me, I think this song should go this direction. I think it should go that direction. But that's pretty much how all of our songs have started. Sometimes I'll come to him literally with just an intro and we do the whole song together. Sometimes I'll just have a good night and write a whole song, and he'll, give me his 2 cents on, I think we should change this. I think we should shorten this. But yeah, that's for Bellwether with our current lives. That's kind of been the writing process, and it's been working pretty well. It's honestly, I always complain that I don't have more time, but I also wonder if I had more time, if these songs would come on the way they do.
Yeah. Do you ever feel, I love asking people who write songs that way this question, do you ever feel apprehensive about putting so much of yourself in a song and putting it out there? Or do you approach it as kind of almost like therapy?
It's therapy, 100%. Yeah. There have been a couple things where I'm like, ugh, like, especially with my wife, like the song Fever Sweats is about lust. And I'm like, like, is she gonna, like, what's she gonna think about this? Like, it's just because I do write about things I struggle with, about things I'm going through. So I do sometimes get nervous, like, is my wife going to think this is about her? Is she going to think, all these things? But no, I'm glad you said therapy, because every song that we've written has felt like therapy to me, and it needed to come off my chest. And I'm not a great communicator, so I can't really express my feelings a lot of different ways and my emotions other than music. So 100%, I feel like writing is therapy.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted that you have that process, to help you deal with stuff.
Yeah.
So what was the point where you felt like, I'm not going to give up on this, I want to keep going?
For us, so my wife and I both play music, and it's both, my wife was the person who, started piano lessons at, 3 and 4, and, was a classically trained pianist, classically trained vocalist, did all that, but still sticks with it. She's kind of like the anomaly in that, where she still loves music, and, it's still such a huge part of her life and a part of our life. We still go to shows, we still go to metal shows together, and we've been together for 15 years. And it's literally Amy and I's first date. We went out with Isaac and some friends, and we went to an open mic night. So it's literally been, for us, music has been a part of our lives since literally day one. And for me, and I know for Isaac, like, music is just, it is a absolute essential component to life. Like, whether it's listening to music, playing music, whatever, writing music, whatever it is, it has to be a part of life. It is an unavoidable part for me, and I know it is for Isaac too. And it has been that constant thing for me and for us since we were kids. And it's something that I had, at a certain point, I had to find something that I could make money at and feed myself and feed my family and all of that. And I cook for a living, and I do have passion for that. But like, the one thing for me that has always been there and will never go away is playing music. It is an unavoidable thing, and it will not, if I'm on this earth until I'm 90, I will still be bashing drums and going to shows and just experiencing music in any way I possibly can.
Yeah. And like, I mean, music, the thought of not doing it just doesn't even occur to me. Like, we didn't really have this like definitive moment where like, okay, we're on the right track. You know, we're not on a label. We didn't have that, like, we got signed, so we're clearly doing the right thing. Or, you know, we're on this crazy sold out tour. So we've never really had, especially as Bellwether, we haven't had that definitive moment where we're like, we're clearly doing the right thing. But just the fact that it got us through so much crap these past 2 years, like, life isn't going to get any easier. Life isn't easy. So I know more bad stuff is going to happen and will continue to happen. So, you know, not playing music just isn't even an option at this point, because it helps get through so much BS.
Yeah.
And for us, it's not, like we said earlier, like for us, whether it's just for us, just to like be in the room together and create something that wasn't there 10 minutes ago, like, which is just kind of a miracle process in general, and such a rewarding thing by itself. And I think I said this on Matthew's podcast, but like for us, like the moment that just playing together and playing music and writing music together and just being able to have the gift of this, when that stops being enough, then there's no reason for us to continue. You know what I mean? Like it's not something for us to like take over the world. If that happens, fantastic. But at the same time, like being able to play music with Isaac and have my wife play with us live, like it is such an amazing gift to be able to have. And like for us to be able to do it, it's just amazing.
Yeah, we're getting everything we want out of the band, just being able to write together. So like everything else is an absolute bonus.
Yeah. So we keep going because we absolutely love doing this. And we can't not do this. Like that's what's not an option for us. Like it's something that has to be a part of our lives, because it's a part of who we are, and it's a part of what we do, you know?
Yeah. It's like oxygen. It's that important to you.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the last couple of questions, what are the future plans for Bellwether?
So we are working, well, we have an EP ready basically to record, as far as we know. We're trying to narrow down the songs and we'll probably try to do 6 of our best songs available and come out with an EP. So I would say that's kind of our nearest future. We have a couple songs that we'll probably release as singles before then, just because at this point, the thought of recording and releasing an EP is probably going to be a couple to a few months away. So I would say releasing the EP and just playing as many shows as we can is what we're doing in the immediate future.
Yeah. We're just trying to get as many opportunities as possible. Yeah. So doing podcasts, putting out singles. We're doing a cover of Where Did You Sleep Last Night? But I should know who originally did it, but I just know that Lead Belly. Yeah. So Lead Belly originally did it, and then Nirvana kind of most famously did it on, MTV Unplugged. But we're going to do a cover and a video of that. We're just kind of trying to get schedules aligned and get the recording done before we can go record the video. We have a location, we have all these things, but yeah, for us right now, it's more about EP is kind of like big picture of where we want to be. But like in the near future, we're just reaching out to as many people to play as many shows as we are lucky enough to play. And then, releasing songs and just kind of keeping interest out there and just kind of keeping things going to where, we have content out and we, kind of the whole social media game, as it were, but just making sure that we still have things that people can engage in on a day-to-day basis. And just hopefully, I think we're up to like 550 followers on Spotify, and, we're trying to get listeners up. You just kind of those like incremental things that we can kind of grow and just kind of get bigger and get more of an audience and get more reach. So, like Isaac said, schedules in life kind of get in the way sometimes, but we're really trying to like just kind of push through the distraction of that and just try to work hard to kind of to make this dream a reality, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. With people's attention spans so short nowadays, do you find it hard to keep people engaged?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're, I don't know much about TikTok, but we're trying to get in that world a little bit. So we're trying to do, we're trying to come out with songs, we're trying to come out with videos. You pretty much constantly need to show up in people's feeds to stay relevant, or they'll literally get forgotten overnight. It's just so easy to be forgotten with the mass amount of just everything that's constantly in your face.
Yeah. And we're just trying to also kind of behind the scenes, whether it's at shows or just the band we used to play in, we had a lot of really great connections with a lot of bigger bands. And, we're trying to get back into those worlds and trying to come alongside other bands and trying to work with bands. There's a really great band out of Boston right now called Mission to Sleep. You should check them out. They're really fantastic. But trying to work with them of trying to be like, hey, do you guys want to go old school and do a split EP? Or, a guy came to our show at Boggs, who plays in kind of a As Cities Burn, kind of post-rock band, who really liked us. And we're, trying to talk with him to get a local show going to where it's like-minded bands can come together and put on a show kind of how we all used to, where it's just there might be 20 people there, but let's be punk rock about it. Let's just start this thing in a basement and just grow it to as big as we can, but just trying again, not that we don't want to be associated with bands who are, just doing it for a job or just doing it because it makes money, but we want to be surrounded with people who are doing it for the reasons that we're doing it, And so, we're just kind of behind the scenes, just trying to reach out to those bands that we really like and, tag bands. We've been doing playlists and just finding bands that are small, just like us, and putting them on that playlist. And maybe 20 people hear it, but we tag them in it. And then the people that listen to us can go listen to them. And, you kind of build this community where, social media is one of those things that is kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. But one of the benefits of it is that you can, we always talk about DistroKid, the fact that you can put your music online for free is an insane opportunity, and so to be able to get on Spotify and look where your music is being streamed, it's Dubai, Ireland, India, all these places. And we're sitting here in Atlanta, Georgia, recording in this literal bedroom right here. And somebody in India is listening to your music. It's kind of an insane concept, So it's one of those really, really big benefits of this community. And if you can kind of reach out to those bands that are also trying to do what you're trying to do, who are just trying to get a little bit further along in the journey, it's just we just want to come up in a community of bands that can get back to that really, really authentic music scene where people are just showing up because again, it's oxygen, it's what you do. There's no other option but to play this music, and that's why you're there, not because of Spotify plays or whatever it is. You're there because this is the only thing that is the rational thing for you to do, is to show up and play this music.
Yeah. I've said it before, the music industry would be a much better place if bands, I know the labels are very cutthroat, but bands that are on the same level weren't as cutthroat and competitive with each other. Obviously you want to be better, but if every band could get it into their heads, build a community and raise each other up as they rise up, it'd be much better.
Yeah, it's sad because Nate and I talk about this all the time. When we go away from a show and a band was nice, we're actually surprised. It's sad. If we play with people that are super nice and, really encouraging, it's surprising. And that's just so sad to me.
Yeah. We always try to be that band.
Yeah, we try to be that band because I know the other side of it. Like, especially when you're new and people are just rude. It's just, I don't know. It's just such a bad vibe. And music should just be so happy and uplifting that, yeah, I agree. I wish more people treated it like a community because it really should be, and it really is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully someday that starts to happen. But we'll move on to the last couple of questions. I'm afraid everybody gets these. You can't get off the podcast to the answer, so we'll get cracking on with them. If there was an artist or performer from history you could see in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Mine is Queen, like, no doubt.
Really?
Freddie Mercury is just, he's unlike anybody. He had everything. I mean, he just was a God-given talent, and I would love to see Queen with Freddie Mercury doing his thing.
And Brian May's guitar tone, are you kidding me?
Crazy.
I would say Prince, just because he was just kind of like, I mean this in the greatest way possible. Like, he was just like a freak of nature. You know what I mean? Like,
He
I
didn't care.
I can't think of anybody who wrote more songs, like, just in general, than that man. And just like, he's not my favorite musical artist of all time by a long shot, but like, just the breadth of his catalog and the things that he was able to do. And I mean, I've watched videos of him playing, and just like the amount of musical talent that one person had was the equivalent of like 45 people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's my answer to that one, because that guy, just like a few people in the last few years, left the world far, 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 far too early. Similar to Freddie Mercury as well. Just left the world far too early.
And Brian, I'm sorry, I know we're not supposed to ask you questions, but I just want to know, who's yours?
I always hate when I get asked, because it always.
I'm sorry, you can skip it. Don't worry about it.
No. I'll be fair. It tends to flip flop, but the one I find myself coming back to most is probably The Doors.
Oh yeah.
When I was a teenager, I got obsessed with Jim Morrison and The Doors. And do you remember back in like the early 2000s, the rest of the band reformed and started touring? I actually had physical tickets to go see them when they came to Ireland, and I couldn't make it. So I feel like I really missed out. So if I could actually,
it still wouldn't be the same. That's like Queen did the same thing, but I'm like, dude, it's not Freddie Mercury. Like, that would be fun. It would be cool, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I suppose it'd be just like going to see a tribute act, really.
Exactly.
I had the opportunity twice to go see the Smashing Pumpkins in the original form, in the original lineup. And I had to miss both shows. That's one of my biggest musical regrets.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you. They're on my list that I'd love to see.
Yeah.
Even nowadays, without the original lineup, I'd still just, as long as it has Billy Corgan there singing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you could be locked in a room for 24 hours with any artist or performer from history, who would it be? Mine
is I feel like, especially for a drummer, especially from like the era that we grew up in, this is probably an answer for almost everybody. That's a really terrible sentence I just said. Mine would be Dave Grohl, because he's been my musical hero for a long time as a drummer, and just as I feel like he has been such a advocate for, again, the human element of music, and really just like getting back to what music is and should be. And also, as we've kind of talked about on a few different points, he's also that person that finds those small bands and will wear their t-shirt in a video. Like, I remember I'm forgetting the name of the song, but he wore a t-shirt from the band The Sounds in the video with like the TVs falling. I can't remember. Anyway,
sorry, I'm no help.
It's okay. Or like, I know Royal Blood was a band that he found and, kind of like was really talking about them a lot. And there's a bunch of bands, and my wife and I went and saw them at Fenway Stadium in Boston. And on their tour, they had bigger local bands come and open for them at their shows. So like I saw Dinosaur Jr. open up for Foo Fighters in Boston for, 40,000 people, so like for me, he's the guy that I'm like, this guy, when you look at the stratosphere of like what you want to do as a band or like where you would want to be, he's that person for me. And for him to have the perspective of like, I'm going to bring some little people up with me is just super cool in my opinion. So he's been my musical hero for a long, long time.
Yeah. This might shock you, but
what's that?
I said, this might shock you, but I want to say that's the first time he's been brought up. He's been mentioned as the person in the room. He might have been mentioned on an early episode. I'm not entirely sure. But it's probably the first time. But I'm shocked at that as well, because I wouldn't mind spending 24 hours with Dave Grohl. Like, he is a modern day legend of music,
He's played with anybody and everybody that you would ever want to play with in your entire life.
Yeah. And he seems like such a nice guy and down to earth.
Yeah.
I would say mine would be Jack White.
Right.
I've liked pretty much everything he's done, from the White Stripes to Dead Weather and the Raconteurs and just being Jack White. I don't know if you saw a documentary called, I think it's called This Might Get Loud.
It Might Get Loud.
It Might Get Loud. But it was him, Jimmy Page, and The Edge. And it starts, the opening scene is him like kicking this porch and playing this guitar he made. And it just the way his mind works, it's incredible. And I would just have him play guitar for 24 straight hours and just watch him and see how his mind works.
Yeah. He's another really interesting character, actually. One of those people that you just, as you said, you'd love to pick his mind. Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't watched that documentary, by the way, it came fantastic. Out a long time ago, but it was made by the same guy that did the director that did The Inconvenient Truth and The Dark Knight, which is the Batman film. But like, and so it's super cool. They found a warehouse, and it's literally Jimmy Page, The Edge, and Jack White all talking about music, and it kind of goes and kind of chronicles all three bands and these three guitarists kind of journey to where they were. It's probably one of the most important
it's very
musical
inspiring
documentaries that's come out in a long time.
When you said the name, actually, it didn't ring a bell, but when you said Jack White, Jimmy Page, and The Edge, it does sound familiar. I might have seen a bit of it or seen clips of it or something, but I'll definitely have to look up the full thing anyway.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
If there was a song that could appear on the soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
So whenever I get asked these questions, my mind kind of goes blank. So I had my wife help me out a little bit. She came up with two, and I think that they're both really good answers to the question. So I'm going to go with two. I don't know if that's allowed, but one would be Best of You by Foo Fighters. Because that's just that song kind of, it by design has kind of like this dichotomy to it, to where it's like, is somebody getting the better of you or somebody getting the best of you? And it kind of has this like, and I'm a really nice guy in my real life, and so sometimes I feel like some people are taking advantage of me, and so there's a lot of times where that song reads one way to me, and there's sometimes that song reads another way to me. And full transparency, when we saw them at Fenway Park, I definitely cried when they played that song because it was such a beautiful thing. And then the other one would be Survive by Rise Against.
Right.
It's just a fantastic, like I literally listened to it this afternoon before I was going to give it as my answer, and I still get goosebumps from it. And it's just this kind of like, when life is hard, just kind of like this really empowering, just like fist in the air type of song that just like gets you back on the horse. You know what I mean? So those are kind of like my two songs.
Mine would I'm the same as Nate. If people ask me these questions, I'm just like, what do I like? I don't even know who I like. But, mine would have to be "Okay, I Believe You," but my Tommy Gun Don't by Brand New. Deja Entendu, to me, like in high school, it blew my mind, and it really was the album where I was like, I want to do music 100% after listening to Brand New, and his lyrics seemed new and different than what anyone else was singing about. He sang about like teen angst and just all this real stuff, and you could tell he really meant it. So I would have to say that song.
Some solid choices there. I like him. I actually I've seen Foo Fighters myself as well, and I think the song that brought a bit of a tear, an unexpected tear to my eye was the song Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, it just, as soon as it played, it was just the atmosphere and everything.
Yeah.
But three solid choices. So to give the listeners a sense of you, as people, what do you like to do when you're not doing music?
For me, I hang out with my wife Amy, and we've got a 8-year-old Australian Shepherd mix named Enzo Ferrari. That
Nice.
He's a very sweet boy, and we take him to the park, and we go to shows, and Amy and I play music together too, and we have 4 beautiful nieces that live here in Atlanta, and for me, it's when I'm not either at work or playing music, like family is it. Family is the most important thing. So for me, if I'm not doing music or working a 60-hour week in the kitchen, I'm just hanging out at home. It's my favorite place to be. So
yeah, so this is the one where me and Nate have the same answer. I have a almost 5-year-old daughter named JoJo, and I have a wife. So life is so busy, and Nate and I try to make time for music, and I have a full-time job as well. So when I'm not working, when we're not doing music, it's being at home with my family. It's changed a bit over the past 2 years, but I love traveling. It's made it kind of complicated now. My wife and I love going new places and, trying new foods and seeing new cultures. So outside of family, I would say like experiencing new cultures and traveling would be my 100% like favorite thing to do.
Yeah. Now, if you had have picked that question to swing back on me, I actually would have gave the same answer as you guys. Once I'm not in work or doing the podcast, I'm spending time with family. I think it's the most important thing,
100%. Yeah.
And
when you, regardless of whether it's music or like a regular job, like the only reason why you show up and do something to make money or otherwise, like, is to support the people that you love, and for me, it's like there's no reason to get through it if there's not something to do it for,
to enjoy it with somebody to enjoy it with.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. So the final one, is there something I should have asked you guys?
So this question was really hard because I had no idea where the conversations would go, and I didn't want to like have one thing in my mind and then we ended up talking about it. But mine would be, where did you come up with the band name Bellwether? And I'll actually let Nate answer that because I think it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. So for us, like we're both from Ohio. Well, Isaac was born in Guatemala and lived in Guatemala till like
13.
Till he was 13. And so that's why his family came back in 4th grade, which is how we first met. And then when they came back permanently in 8th grade was when, we kind of like all of this kind of started, I guess. But so we spent most of the time in our history in Ohio. And so when we were kind of thinking about a band name, there's a lot of terrible band names in history, most notably one that I've mentioned multiple times in this podcast that my person I was spending in a room for 24 hours with has also said is like one of the worst band names in history, famously quoted saying that. However, we wanted to come up with something that one, looked good on t-shirts, and it was something that could be memorable. For me, I think one syllable band names are pretty easy to remember, you know?
Yeah.
But when we were kind of just thinking about it, I literally opened the Wikipedia page for Ohio and just kind of started reading about the history of where we both mostly, I definitely all the way grew up there. Isaac mostly grew up there. And just kind of started reading about the history of Ohio and what terms and things like that were associated with Ohio. And so one thing that came up pretty quickly was that Ohio was a bellwether state. And so what that kind of term means and kind of the association with it is a political association. And so basically what it means is that in American elections, wherever Ohio goes, usually that's a determinant of where the like presidential election is going to go, because there's so much weight within Ohio because it's such a large state. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit, and where that term comes from is back in the sheep herding days. If there was a sheep that was kind of the leader of the group, they will put a bell on that sheep so that all the other sheep would follow that sheep.
Yeah.
So it was like the leader of the group, and kind of, again, with a political association, kind of letting people know where things are going. So when I thought about a band and music and things of that nature, I was like, that's kind of a pretty cool concept of like, okay, so could we be the bellwether of the music industry, to where we're getting back to that, again, that human, authentic, organic, self-produced, self-made, you know, starting in a basement with 2 people, growing it to however big it will go, band again, kind of like where things used to be. And so that kind of really stuck with me, and that kind of idea and that concept kind of stuck with me. Another contender for the band name was Station Hope, because Cleveland, which is an hour north of where we grew up, a nickname for that city is Station Hope, and it was the northernmost stop on the Underground Railroad. So people who were fleeing the South and fleeing slavery, Cleveland was known as Station Hope, to where if they got there, they had hope of existence.
Yeah.
And so that was also a really cool concept for us. And so we kind of went with both, as it were. Like Bellwether is the band name, but anything that we do is Station Hope Records, or state like, this is our music studio. Essentially, it's my spare bedroom, but it's our music studio. So, you know, anything that we put out is Station Hope Studios or Station Hope Records. And so we're also trying to, even while we're small and while we're still getting going, we want to kind of put some things in place that if things do grow and things do get bigger, to where we could hopefully do this as a viable income, to where we could maybe make Station Hope Records an actual thing, or Station Hope Studios an actual entity that we can do for a living and bring bands in. And again, if we are lucky enough to be anybody of consequence in the music scene, that we can find smaller bands and be like, hey, you guys want to be on Station Hope Records? Here's what we can do for you, and here's how we can grow you, and here's how we can bring you up, just like somebody else did for us, you know? So for us, it's kind of like partly right now thinking and partly future thinking of okay, so this is where we are now, but if we're lucky enough and the stars align and, you know, do all these things, like we can put some things in place that we can, again, help people out and really kind of like solidify some things for us. So that's the long story of where Bellwether came from and kind of what we're trying to do, I guess.
Yeah. So you couldn't have actually picked 2 better names. You know, it actually sums you guys up perfectly. The story behind it and everything. It's fits you perfectly. So
well, appreciate it. Hopefully we can be both.
yeah, exactly. Listen, guys, I've really genuinely enjoyed chatting to you for the last hour and a bit. And I can safely say that you're the nicest, most genuine people I've had on the podcast. And nobody deserves to blow up more than you guys do.
Well, that means the world to us.
Yeah, we really appreciate that,
Brian, and Concerts That Made Us for having us. Like it really means the world, because we're really nobody at this point. So I mean, you just having us on means the world to us, and I appreciate it.
And like for us to be able to just like hang out and chat for an hour about music while you're sitting in Ireland and we're sitting in Atlanta, like it's just like that's a cool thing, you know?
Yeah.
So we're just,
and I'm super Irish, so this is awesome. If I let my beard grow out, it's red. I love Ireland, and yeah, it's
and my
awesome.
wife, and my wife's maiden name is McLaughlin, so her McLaughlin, and then her mom's maiden name is McIndoe, which is Scottish, and my last name is Sheesby or Shesby, which is very English. So like all of our families are very solidly in the UK. Our family heritage is firmly in the UK.
Yeah.
When you
guys when you start making it, you'll have to come over and tour Ireland and the UK.
100%. I would die to do that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be more than a dream come true.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concerts that made us.